Super excited to see so many of you here today. Before we start, I kindly ask everyone to put themselves on mute so that we make sure that everyone is able to hear the person that we are here to hear. But before we actually go more into the session, I wanted to say that this session is a special session, the session of Creative Mornings Munich that is part of the Munich Creative Business Week, which is Germany's biggest design event. And we are beyond happy to be part of this amazing event for several years in a row now. If you don't know more about it, or if you haven't seen the program yet or anything, don't worry, because the events are running all the way through March 14th. So we highly recommend you to simply go over to their webpage and read a little bit more about the amazing events that are happening this week and have some fun. And now, without further ado, I would love to introduce the topic of the month, which is Ripple. We have two amazing speakers who are going to take place in our panel discussion today. We have Eleanor Mayrhofer and Ann Petersen. They're both amazing entrepreneurs, but beyond this, they're just really beautiful souls, really amazing, inspiring, creative people that we were more than happy to see. They were ready to jump on board and join our panel discussion. So usually Creative Mornings is about a talk, but this month, in terms of the Creative Mornings and Munich Creative Business Week, we decided to surprise you a little bit and shift things around a tiny bit and have an interactive panel discussion that is going to be moderated by our dear Balint from Creative Mornings Munich team. So Balint, I would kindly ask you to unmute yourself and jump on and take it away from here.
Thank you, Katja. So I just quickly want to reflect our topic, which is Ripple. And I was I was Googling it for a while until I understood what is it about, reflecting to our lives. And also what helped a lot is getting the abstracts from Eleanor and Ann. And I just wanted to show this GIF because this is really about creating an effect which influences others. And this is a very important moment in creative business and creative life to have this effect. And I would just quote from Goethe, which also Eleanor did. And I would like to ask her to reflect on this ripple effect, because the quote was, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So creating the ripple effect, it's all about creating it, starting it. It's not that easy. So Eleanor, I would ask you to explain us how to start the ripple effect, or what was your experience about starting it? Because I think this is the point which is the biggest question mark in our heads.
Yeah, well, that was kind of the first thing that came to my mind when I understood that the theme was ripple. And even though that quote, I think, was sometime in the 1800s, it's very contemporary. The idea that once you kind of make a decision and take action, all these kinds of unseen things start to happen. And I think in the end, especially if you're a creative person, a lot of it is just about faith that if you start something and you do something, something will happen. And you might start with a specific outcome in mind, but you also should kind of try and exist in this gray area where the exact thing that you want to happen might not happen, but something else could happen. And yeah, I think it's just important to get started and then see what happens out of that.
Anna, do you have an experience with starting the ripple effect, or how you make your people around you to start, or how do you do that?
Well, I can say from my own journey that I feel anything that I have sort of taken faith and leaped out to do, even though I have not really known what was going to happen, and it's scary. But once I started action, it's like you don't look back, you just go forward. So then it's this step-by-step approach that gives you that ripple effect of movement, basically, and momentum.
Yeah, and I would just add, once you do that, other things start happening, and like some are unseen, but things you can't anticipate. So an example, this was from my last business, but and that was where I was selling like online printable designs. And I remember waking up one morning, and I had been producing a lot. And you don't get immediate feedback if you just start uploading stuff to your online shop. And I woke up and I was feeling super discouraged, like, okay, nothing's happening. I'm not getting the sales that I want, blah, blah, blah. And later that morning, I went into my inbox, and there was a message from an editor at Martha Stewart Living. And this is a European audience. So at the time, this was maybe 8 years ago. It was a really big lifestyle media empire. And they wanted to put one of my designs in like one of the magazines in April. And that was like a really big deal. And so the point there is just that I had been kind of throwing work out, not knowing if anything's going to happen. And like, meanwhile, there's a editorial meeting in New York. I'm like, oh, I found this on Pinterest. Let's put it in our magazine in 2 months. So that's kind of an example of the unseen ripples that happen when you take action and just keep doing your do.
But I have to say that a lot of people are kind of scared to do the ripple effect or start. A lot of concerns, like are a lot of introverts also outside, and a lot of people like ask themselves, yeah, I cannot plan this journey. I cannot plan what will be this ripple effect. So what can you suggest in this case if people are kind of scared to jump into the water to create the ripple effect?
Take that now.
Yeah, I would say that sometimes it's fear, but I think also we create obstacles in our way. Maybe it's fear and obstacles. I would say that the more you can focus on the longer term, what you're trying to achieve. What I see is that we all get very, very busy, and sometimes we don't necessarily focus on the things that make us happy, but we're doing stuff for a lot of people around us, or things that we think are important, but actually in the grand scheme of things are not necessarily as important for us. So that can start creating an obstacle, and sometimes we lose confidence as well over time. So I think then that's when people start grinding to slowly a bit of a halt, and then the fear starts kicking in as well. Yeah, so I think for me, the biggest takeaway that I've seen with the people that I work with to go over these obstacles is really to give yourself time to reflect. Because if you don't give yourself enough time to reflect, then you're unfortunately not able to get perspective of where you want to go.
I would just add to that, I don't think this is going to be encouraging, but I think you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and have courage. And yeah, it's okay if you feel stupid sometimes. This is kind of an ancillary example, but I think about like when you're in a new country and you have to learn a new language. I had a friend who was really smart. His German was way better than mine, but he would never speak it. We would go to restaurants and I'd order in my bad German. He would order in English, and then he would correct all my declinations. And that was because he didn't like feeling stupid. And it's the same thing most people don't, to be fair, but I think you just have to accept that it's okay, put yourself out there. And at the beginning, take comfort. If you don't have a big audience, like there's not many people looking anyway. So that's a great time to just go out and put yourself out there.
Yeah, I have found out that over time you get comfortable in the uncomfortable, and once you set yourself some targets and you put it out there, you just have to do it. You just end up finding the courage and go beyond to just get it done. So
and what's the alternative?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, but would you say that, so in my opinion or in my world, finding what you really love to do and what you have the motivation to do would unlock this? Because I think it's also a good sign that you're doing something you shouldn't, or it's not your life goal or something like this, is that you are building up these blocks for you. And this you can realize at one point, because if you found a life goal where you make a plan and you're heading towards to it, then it's easier to go into uncomfortable situation, to use your German, even if it's not the best, or you think it's not the best, but you are so motivated to reach your goals. Is it kind of what you mean, or so this is what a key factor to find this really your call, so to say? Yeah,
I think from where I work, I take the fact that I think we all want to feel that we're making a difference, or that we're serving our life purpose. I think a lot of us start questioning, what am I here for? And, you know, is this really what I'm meant to do? And am I passionate about this? But I also look at it in terms of, if you're not there yet, it's difficult to go from, right, this is my life passion and this is what I'm going to do. I take it from the point that I look at different aspects of our life that nourish us. So we talk a lot in my integrative nutrition health coaching, we talk a lot about primary foods and secondary foods. And primary foods being those aspects of your life that give you deeper meaning and nourishment. So those are things like your personal growth, your creativity, your sleep, your home environment, your environment in general, your relationships. It could also be your career. So there's that, once you start reflecting on that, to see, okay, where am I at with regards to these aspects, and where do I want to be, and what are my hurdles in between that are not getting me to where I want to be. I feel that that's a nice way of at least not getting stuck, so that you're constantly reviewing where you're at. And I use a simple tool called the Circle of Life, and I'm sure many people might have heard of it already. But I take it on the aspect that instead of leaving things until the end of the year to review, am I where I want to be? Maybe look at this on a regular basis and use this tool to check in. Am I where I want to be? Because we often end up maybe thinking, well, I don't know what where do I want to be? What's my bigger purpose? And that's quite a big question to ask oneself. So if you can take it day by day and almost, I say quarterly, have a review with yourself. Am I meeting my personal objectives? Am I fulfilling my deeper level of fulfillment or satisfaction as such? So
yeah.
That's,
building on what Anne said and what you asked at the beginning, I think it's also sometimes we think we can like say, okay, this is what I want to do. I've done a bunch of exercises. I know what my passion is now. And now it's easy to take risks because I want to go there. But in my experience, a lot of times it's been really easy to say like, well, I know I don't want to do this, but I'm not sure what exactly it is I want to do. And it's actually, taking action and moving in some direction, even if you don't have a roadmap, that clarifies that for you and figures it out. And that, I'm taking that can be several years, but that in itself is almost a reason to take risks and do things that are uncomfortable, just so you can find out what it is you actually want to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think,
sorry, Anna, please.
yeah, I think if I take it in my own example and my own journey as well, unless I had moved and tried these different positions, I would never have really been able to know exactly what met my and felt that it was fulfilling for me. So it's again this level of actions. Well, if these things aren't meeting my personal objectives, okay, next, let's see. It's this discovery. And I say life is a journey. It's not a destination. So you have to keep investigating and exploring.
Okay, let's get back a bit to the ripple effect, because now let's say we are in a state that we figured it out. I mean, it's super hard, we all know that, but let's say we want to make the ripple effect. We want to see that others are influenced by us in a positive way. Do you have experience, or did you have a moment in life when you felt that I made this ripple and it's great and it's such a good feeling and I want to do more?
You want me to jump in? Yeah, I think from where I was when I was building up a team, I actually got to the point where I built up a team of 4,000 people. And for me, the big thing there was I wanted to make a difference. And I think I wanted to get people to love their job, even if it might not be the job that you ultimately wanted to do, because a lot of the people that I was managing in the team were maybe overqualified for the role that they were doing. But it was we needed to find a certain love for what we're doing now. So it was with my how I showed up every day in terms of my energy and my support. Now, I found out that actually, unless I managed me, as in gave enough time for myself and managed my energy, then I couldn't give. So I quickly found out that I had to have a balance as well. But ultimately, what I saw, the ripple effect, was that the people that I was managing, and they took some leadership skills from me that they subsequently have used in their roles as they grew in their career. And I think that's such a fantastic thing when you can see that, some of the influences and the values that you've got in what you do has a ripple effect onwards to those people.
Yeah.
And Eleanor, you are a designer, right? And
yeah.
Did you have, or when did you have this feeling that, okay, what I'm doing, I have such a passion for it that I can create this ripple effect for others?
Well, actually, it's not, the example I'm thinking of is not through my design. It was actually when, again, in the last business I had, I was kind of in the maker space a lot. And I was working with people that were involved in Etsy, if anybody knows Etsy. And the more I was talking to other makers, I realized they were all having trouble with time management. And in my corporate job that I had left, like one of the roles I had, I learned a lot of really robust project management stuff. So I started this little presentation, like showing how to apply basic project management to your little craft business. And everybody really loved it. And I ended up doing a workshop at the first Hello Etsy conference. And like being a teacher and courses is not like my life's goal, but it actually ended up on Skillshare. I like made a course and put it on Skillshare. And people really appreciated it. And again, it wasn't like design, it was a side thing, but it did feel good because I felt like this is so basic, you just break it down into smaller tasks and put it on a timeline. And, instead of talking about software development, it was, like first make your earrings, then put up your products on Etsy and that kind of stuff. So, and that felt good.
Yeah, I think the feeling of being able to see that ripple effect is great, isn't it? It really gives you that satisfaction.
Yeah.
Do you also have an example for, let's say, private life? Because now we mentioned some professional environment, but there's the question, is it also possible to have like positive ripple effect in the family because you are so much in your well-being that you find yourself and you are so balanced that it influences some, I don't know, people who have problems or not finding their way in life. Do you have an example for that?
Well, I feel from the people that I'm coaching, I have one particular person that I'm thinking of. So he realized he's got his children at home, and he realized at one stage his energy was just totally scattered, and he realized unless he plans out his day somehow to block off time to be present with his daughter, then he wasn't giving her enough time and attention. So her energy, what he realized is if his energy was scattered because he's trying to work, then give a bit of attention to her, then go back to work, he could see his daughter being completely scattered as well. So what he realized is, as we were discussing this, like, how are you going to get through the struggle? Because it's going to be a while. So how are you going to handle this? He realized, okay, unless I give attention to her, and that is focused attention, I'm not going to be able to focus on my work properly. So it is sort of trying to find how to handle things so that you are present when you're doing the work, and then, or whatever you're focusing on, and then shifting. And this comes, I suppose you can also say this comes back to some of this trying to find more focus and avoid distractions when you're doing stuff.
Yeah, I would add personal examples, but also professionally. Sometimes it's really helpful, but not easy, to say things that need to be said. And when you do that, like in a family dynamic, you find out other people wanted to say the same thing, or they feel encouraged to open up about things. So you maybe have to take the first step and take a risk. Again, risk is kind of, I guess, a factor here. And then that has outward effects, ripple effects through the whole family constellation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hopefully in a positive way. I mean, this is also, right? I mean, so many people have so many different ideas, and then you get into conflict with some other family members, I think. But I really like the example of Anna, and this goes back to being balanced and kind of organized in your mind to be able to focus enough to create this effect, or just to spend time and attention on the thing. And I think in our world nowadays, especially now in lockdown, it's also super hard. We are also especially close, so without changing the environment physically, we still have to switch the mindset from one Zoom call to the other Teams call. And actually, this could be a good question as well. How can we now in this virtual room make sure that we have a positive influence on our environment, on our colleagues, on our family, where we are not there physically and cannot hug each other, or cannot, I don't know, hold hands. Did you have, since last year, a moment where you felt, wow, this works exactly well, or you say, no, it needs the physical, like being close to this person?
It's a real crappy replacement. I don't have a good answer for that, except to say that, like a lot of people, I have Zoom fatigue. And there's been a couple of incidents where, like, my middle sister at Christmas, I haven't seen my family in California in like 2 years, or going on 2 years. And she said, okay, let's just do a big Zoom Christmas. And part of me always goes, no, not another Zoom. But when it is good. I was surprised by how great it was. And for those kind of more personal meetings, our child is in an Eltern initiative, and we have kind of these every 6 weeks parents meeting, and somebody said, well, let's do it on Zoom. And we had to do it like 9:30 because everybody's kids are awake. And, I sort of go, oh God, not really a Zoom Friday night at 9. Okay. But it is the next best thing. And people, the woman who ran it, she is an L&D at her firm. So she was really good about breakout rooms and making it she did it sort of like a pub night quiz. And, under the circumstances, it was better than not meeting at all. So I guess that's just how we have to live for a little bit longer.
Yeah, and I would add that to continue having that contact, even though it feels that it's not, it's going to be another Zoom call. It is really important. The other thing I would add is to shift it around a little bit. So what I have suggested to people, especially when I'm doing client coaching calls, we don't have to sit. So let's go out and have a walk together. At least that means that you're shifting your energy as well. You're going outside and you're getting the energy from nature, but you're also shifting your energy because you're moving. One of the things that we've done here in the house to shift energy is on the hour, every hour, we're doing 10 push-ups. So that's for the next 2 weeks. That's what we're doing. The following week we'll be doing sit-ups. We have to find little bits of fun in between that we can inject, because otherwise our days merge into one. And I'd also say it's really, really important that you find time for yourself. And I'm encouraging people to find that time in the morning before your day starts. Because as soon as your day starts, it all just ends up being a bit of a muddle when you have one Zoom call after the other. So if you have that half an hour in the morning and do whatever it is that you need to do to feel like you're grounded again, and you just get some perspective on where, life in general, what is it that you want to dream about, so inject some of that into your day.
And I just second what Anne said. True story. I decided, okay, I'm going to have a morning routine. I'm going to get up early before everybody else because I get crabby if I don't have a little time. And literally, talk about ripple effect. The moment I made this decision, my 4-year-old decided to start getting up at 5 a.m. So I get up, no kidding, at 4:15. I was up at 4:15 this morning because it does make such a difference to have my coffee in peace, think about my day. It ripples through the whole rest of my day. It is worth it 100% to get up early to have that time myself. So yes, good advice, Anne.
Are you meditating or writing down, or how you exactly do it? If you have,
I have my own meditation, which is like drinking my coffee and looking out the window. That's sometimes I try and read a lot of it. I'm not the world's best meditator, but it's like quiet time. It's like nobody talking to me or anything, which I used to do when I was unmarried and no kids. And then I'm trying to put a little bit of a structure around it. So I do have some journal prompts. I don't always do them, but and think about what are the 3 main priorities for the day. I just look through my Asana list and just center myself before I get started. And then that's sometimes she sleeps a little later and can do more, but I can't get too rigid about it because I'll get frustrated if I can't do the whole thing.
Yeah. And I feel it's amazing that you're doing that, because just the fact that you just said, you don't get crabby, because if you're not fluid either about it and it gets too rigid, then the whole purpose of it is sort of lost. The other thing a tool which I used ages ago, and then actually it came up again, that I suggest to people, is something called the Morning Pages. It's by Julia Cameron. It comes out of a book called The Artist's Way, which is actually for creative minds. So again, if you have these obstacles or blocks, this is a way of getting beyond those blocks. So that's a nice little routine as well in the morning that you can do. It's 3 pages. You write as much as you want, whatever is on your head. It's just a brain dump. And then you're clear for the day. You start fresh. So
yeah, I think it's a lot of what a lot of people need. And I also always swear to myself, but it's like mornings for creative professionals, sometimes it's a hard number, because we like to work too late, or we don't like. Sometimes people have this let's say creative mindset towards the evening, and then we just sleep a bit later.
So just to challenge that, because there's a lot of research now around the benefit of sleep, and it's a difficult one, because the creative minds do maybe go further into the night. But a neuroscientist called Matthew Walker, coming out of the University of California, Berkeley, he's done a lot of research now around this, and it is proven that you lose 40% of your memory or information retention if you are lacking sleep. Now, if we go and only have 4 hours consistently of no sleep, we are pretty much like basically drunk. So this is not, it doesn't help for the creative fluids and minds. So the idea also is that it's really important to have these different points in your sleep for your brain to be able to process things. So as a creative, you have obviously a lot of information coming in, a lot of thoughts, but for you to become even more creative, or to find that solution, your sleep is really important. And those non-REM, as we hear, and the REM are really important. There's some fascinating information about, say, Paul McCartney having written a song from a dream, but he did that early morning after he came out of his dream and wrote the song. So it's these kind of things that we need to also be aware of, that it feels counterintuitive, but that kind of thing is physically what our body needs to be able to digest and become more creative.
That's what I also maybe should do. But it's also not that easy, I think, to change a habit. And it's also a topic which comes back all the time also in our talks. We have certain habits, and how to adjust it, and how to, because now we see, okay, we can make a ripple effect. Everyone can make a ripple effect, you say. But then first you have to be in balance yourself and organize yourself. Let's say, if I want to organize my thoughts and get into a state where I can be healthy and have this let's say balanced sleep and be productive. And because I think, especially now in home office, I also feel myself that I kind of not respecting times, because I don't have to commute, I don't have to hold myself into certain agenda in the day. How would you start that? How would you start reorganizing and just get rid of some habits, bad habits in this case, so that you can really make sure that you can start having a good influence in your own life and also on others?
I would say one thing, and I'm not always good at doing this, there's like a simple thing, which is really turn off your devices at a certain point of the day, like whatever that may be for you. For us, it's like it's easier in some ways when you have a kid because there's just time where you can't be looking at everything. But, you know, screens off at 8 or 9 or something like this. And I find that like very hard sometimes to do. It's just hard to turn off. And I think there's probably a little adjustment period where you don't know what to do with yourself, but amazing things can happen. There's been various periods where I've been very good at that, and it is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I have this rule 3-2-1. So 3 hours before you go to bed, you stop work. 2 hours before you go to bed, you're actually screens off, and 1 hour before you're rolling down for bed. So you know, it takes an hour just to sort of calm down before sleep, but you have to. I believe to try and tackle it all at once is overwhelming. So it is, again, I come back to the circle of life. Review what's important for you at the moment, what's out of sync for you to feel in balance. Take one, you know, there might be 4 of those things that you feel, okay, I have to focus on some of these things. Take one at a time, but set some objectives for, say, the next 3 to 6 months. What are those objectives? What is it I want to change? What is it I want to see? And then it is, you know, reviewing that on a regular basis, because once you have some objectives in front of you, those are easier when they're smaller to digest and to deal with than if it's like, I need to change my whole pattern of life. You know, it's just too difficult to manage. So it's, again, which parts are you going to tackle? I fully agree with the distractions. We have way too many distractions going on. So pings and email notifications, and then what's up, and find out which part of the day is your most productive. If it is the morning, which for most of it is, I believe it is, that is sacred time. Then notifications are gone. You need to, you're the only person in control of that. Other people will want to take your time. So if you let it, it will happen. So it's hard though, but it's keeping yourself, keeping some objectives in sight, I think, is the most important.
Yeah, that's a very good tip. I think, I mean, I'm very touched and motivated, and I would like to start tomorrow with these tips. To round this discussion, which I really enjoy and hope the audience as well, I would maybe give the audience 3 takeaways, what they can do in order to start creating ripple in their lives. Could you sum up today's main messages? And then we would just jump into some Q&A, because I'm pretty sure that there will be some questions.
Do you want me to start?
You can start, Anne.
From what we've talked about, I think the big thing is this taking care of you. So make that time for you, find out when it is. Like Eleanor, you know, was saying, her morning is really important. If you can create that, that will help to get yourself centered, helping your energy to ripple out. I would also say it's the reviewing things on a regular basis. I do believe we review things at the end of the year often and go, oh, I didn't meet those objectives, so I'll roll them into next year. And then 1 year after, then suddenly, what was my dream? What was the ripple effect I wanted to create? So that's something that I feel is important, that you review on a regular basis. What is important to you and where are you at with that? And a third thing I would say is find meaning in today. Be a leader in whatever you're doing, and if you can find personal objectives in whatever you're doing today that is meeting and satisfying and fulfilling you, that will go a long way.
Eleanor, for you, 3 things?
Yeah, I would say my mantra for the last year, and it's certainly not something I've coined, but is that action brings clarity, but it also brings new information and new responses because of the ripple effect. So if you can just have, take some action with direction, that will illuminate the path forward and what you should do next. I would also say that things are happening that you can't see. In the little graphic you showed at the beginning, you put your finger and the ripples come out, but a lot of times those ripples are completely unseen things that are happening and will come back to you, so have faith. And then the last thing I would say is just keep going, keep putting your work out there. And if it's time to quit, you'll know. It might be a long process, but you'll know. So just keep moving forward. That's it.
Amazing. I really like the 2 different point of view from you. And because Eleanor is this, okay, just start and you will not know what will happen. And this is exactly how I started, how I came to Germany, and I didn't know what will happen. I ended up in a small village in a design agency, and I didn't know how to go to work. And it was a lot of question marks, but I ended up in where I wanted to be. So I really agree with you to start and trust your path, and if you find what you want to do, and you have enough power to invest in it, then it will end up well. Maybe not in the first year, maybe in a few years, but I think this is exactly what you meant. And I also liked Anna's approach to find balance and slow down and respect your health. And then, Katja, I may ask you to help with the questions so we can open up the stage for others to ask some other questions maybe.
Yes, definitely. First of all, really, really cool discussion, great insights. I'm super excited. Our community has been excited as well. There have been several things happening over at the chat. One fun fact, so Anne, you mentioned this book, and we started having a little thread in the chats about other books that people would recommend. So I love seeing how, that's in a way a ripple effect as well, when someone says something and then it actually multiplies. So that's pretty amazing. We have a few questions in the chat, but I would actually ask maybe first, before we go into the chat questions, is there anyone in the audience who would love to ask the question live? So basically you can simply unmute yourself and just pop up there and ask the question. Do we have anyone who is ready to ask?
Hi, I would like to ask a question. I already put it in the chat. So talking in terms of like business and you being entrepreneurs, like have you ever been afraid of the ripple effect being like too big? Like sort of you spread your idea and it keeps becoming a movement and you sort of lose control because it's just growing too big maybe, or it's just like self-running in the end. So where's the point of like how much control do you want to keep, or how much influence can you have in the end? That would be my interest.
An interesting one. What if the ripples are too big and you lose control?
That's amazing.
It's every day. There's only one way that has not happened so far, so it's not a concern yet, but there is actually one way I worry about it in a very weird way. I have workflow software. So you set up these really complex workflows and then somebody books and then they get these automated emails and everything. And I'm always a little worried that like automations are going out all over the place and totally out of control and a big Rube Goldberg machine. And so, yeah, in some ways I have to use this. It's a part of my business. I can't do it without it, but I do feel sometimes a uncomfortable lack of control about the process. But that's not really the same as like something going viral and I suddenly have 2 million followers overnight. So I'll deal with that when that happens.
I would say that if you're comfortable with the ripple that's happening, so from what I've seen, everybody wants to have a positive impact. And so I'm presuming you're having a positive impact and that's rippling out. Sometimes it may change over time, but that's something that you probably won't then have control of. So as long as you're putting out the right positive ripple that you want to create, you may not have the control out here. I come back to Stephen Covey's sphere of influence. It can become quite overwhelming if you start thinking about too far afield. And what is your sphere of influence that you have control of? That'll be where I would try and focus rather than trying to think too much about what that is happening out here. I think if your intention is right, then that's the best that you can do.
Yeah,
Thanks.
well, thanks.
Hope, Veronica, this has answered the question. Do we have
yeah.
any? Go ahead.
Sort of. Well, one other thing is that I sometimes have the feeling that our biggest fear is actually to grow too big instead of like having the fear of it's not gonna work out. But like that was probably my intent of the question. So is there any point, like Eleanor, you said like when I have 2 million followers, then maybe I'll set myself up to that. So yeah, that was my point. Like, is there a little fear inside of you of like being too big, of like having too much influence out there, or have you reached a point where that doesn't make any sense and you just go forward?
I think typically that doesn't usually happen overnight, and you probably grow into your influence over time. So that, like, I think I alluded to this earlier, which I think makes it easy. At the beginning, it's like, you don't have an audience. Nobody cares. You can just put stuff out there and then you go look at your analytics. It's like, oh, 10 people saw that. So it's actually great. It's great. You can just experiment and do whatever you want and not worry about it. But you know, over time that grows and grows and grows. And I think you grow into it too, or that's my assumption. So, you know, I don't see anything happening that would make that kind of out of control level of a ripple effect happen so fast that I wouldn't be able to deal with it.
There's also Karina in the chat who is saying that she feels basically the same way about automations. She says, I need them for my business as well, and I've never had any negative ripples because of them. But sometimes I lose overview of everything that's happening automatically, right? So I think this is quite an interesting part as well. There was another question in the chat by Andrea, which is about what are your top 3 favorite habits, Eleanor and Anne? Would you want to go into these a little bit?
You want to start, Anne?
Yeah. So I do believe everybody's unique, so you have to find yours. But my top habits are my morning routine. So it is getting, whether it's some form of journaling or it's actually getting outside. This morning I went for a run. If I can get time to do that, that is my best habit. But again, it comes down to it's creating my me time. The other one has got to be drinking water. People do not drink enough water. So yep, on that note. And then the other one is planning my meals for the next week. The more I can plan my meals, the more I know that I have at least that under control. So those are my three habits.
Mine would be like 2 kind of not so healthy, 1 kind of healthy. My morning cup of coffee, like I don't care what research, like I'm drinking coffee till I die. I don't care. I need that morning cup of coffee.
It gives you joy.
Huh?
If it gives you joy.
It gives me so much joy. So that, one I'm wrestling with because it also gives me joy, but I'm not sure if it's really such a good habit, is my evening glass of wine. But my good habit is running. And I've always been just a very, at the beginning of the presentation, there was that Hay thing with the books, and there was Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Creative Magic. One term she came up with in that book that I think is so genius is being a disciplined half-ass. And I'm a very disciplined half-ass when it comes to running. Like, I've been running for 15 years, like not very well, but I run and I love it. And I feel like it's always kept me, like, kind of manage my energy levels pretty well. So those are my three, I don't know if they're to be recommended, but my three favorite habits.
I think the key there is it gives you joy, right?
Yeah.
And then it's all in balance, right? So if you see that at some point, okay, drinking's maybe gone a little bit overboard, you pull back.
Yeah.
So, but as long as it's still giving you joy.
Thank you, Anne.
Funny you bring this up because it was the ice-breaking question today. We basically asked people while they were joining to this session to think of what brings them joy. So it's interesting that, we kind of wrap it up with this again. So I wanted to ask if there is any other live question out there. Anyone else who would like to simply unmute themselves and ask? Otherwise, I would have one. And then if there is any other, let us know. Otherwise, it may also be the last one. I wanted to ask you, Eleanor and Anne, is there in your life, has there been someone that you would say had this ripple effect on you? Or maybe something, that influenced you in a way, positive or negative, that you could actually track it back to a certain happening? So I'm making it up. For instance, has there been a teacher in your primary school who has influenced what you're doing today? Or, any kind of little anecdote like this? Is there anything you could think of?
Do you want to go, Anne?
It's a hard one.
Yeah,
okay. I can say one pretty easily. I would actually have to say my dad. He has a printing business. He's a creative person, small business person. And he was always really laid back about, like, college and stuff. When I got out of high school, he said, you do not have to go to college, but you can't stay here and do nothing. And when I eventually decided that I wanted to go to art school, I had like this freak out before because, you're whatever, 20, 19. And I remember thinking, what if I don't want to do this for the rest of my life? What if I don't want to, I don't know what I'm going to want to do. And he said kind of what I said today. He said, you know what, just start somewhere. You might not do this the rest of your life, but you just got to kind of pick something and see where it takes you. And he always kind of had really good advice like that. And I think I'm lucky to have a parent who said, you're going to go to medical school or whatever. That would have been a disaster. So I think his attitude about, picking something and seeing where it takes you was really good advice that I still use and value today.
I would say, I've got a lot of examples, but I would say the one was, again, coming back to the place, the company where I was managing this team of 4,000 people. It was actually one of the directors, and probably two of the directors, but one of them especially, because he gave me there was so much faith in me that I could do this job. But the whole thing that I learned from him was the way he managed and brought humor into how to manage people. And he pushed me to keep growing. So the fact that I stepped back and I was managing, I wasn't managing directly all these people, but they were part of my team, and I was having an influence to all of the levels. I can only really come back to the fact that I learned a lot from him about how to manage people, and especially using humor and connection and time with people. So Yeah.
Inspiring. Super
Actually,
glad.
if I'm allowed also to say something, I changed my career path because of a person, because of a teacher, because I studied photography and we had a typography teacher. He was the most enthusiastic person in the teacher's crew. And we like made fonts, like letters with our hands, and we photographed them. And I just had a feeling for how much fun it is to not to take a photo of something, but to create something from nowhere, to design. And then this caught my mind so much that I changed completely my career because I like that way more. How he was enthusiastic about his job and how he animated us to do creative things and build and experiment. This mindset I took over, and if I think back, what was the reason? This was him and his ripple effect.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, isn't this a great way to wrap it up then? I think that we actually got to hear some really great inspiration. I'm super thankful for both of you, Anne and Eleanor, to tune in today. I'm going to share in the chat the contact and ways how people can reach out to you both, how they can connect with you either from LinkedIn or webpage or even your Instagram pages. Thank you so much, Balint, for moderating this session. I think you really brought some structure to the whole talk and made sure that we were keeping on time. So thank you everyone as well for tuning in into this session. I just wanted to share that there were quite a lot of things happening in the chat, some book recommendations, as well as some great sponsored promotions from our side. So we are going to share a recap newsletter, as always, with some key takeaways, with the recording of this session as well. So I highly encourage everyone to subscribe to the newsletter if you haven't subscribed yet. I'm just going to share so that you can see how you can do that. You basically go to creativemornings.com cities/MUC for Munich. And here on the bottom, you have the Munich newsletter sign up. We don't spam people. We actually just send the relevant information about talks. So highly encourage you to do this. And then as well, I wanted to share that next month's theme is going to be procrastination, something I guess that everyone is pretty much aware of. And especially when it comes to creatives, very often we may procrastinate and not know how to kick ourselves and get some inspiration. We're having a really inspiring speaker coming up. So I'm inviting you again to stay tuned over our newsletter and social networks, where we will announce the topic, the date, and everything. And apart from these, I am just saying an amazing thanks for everyone who joined, who made this session happen. I'm wishing you an amazing Friday, and then have a great weekend, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for tuning in, guys.
Thank you. Take care, guys.